Hello and welcome to Master Your Art Skills Weekly. I'm Vlad Yeliseyev, and today I would like to talk to you about the timing in watercolor. As opposed to oils which can stay wet for days, watercolor dries pretty fast, and I'm going to show you how to deal with it to minimize some mistakes which might happen. So let's have a look at the sample I'm going to paint for you. I'm going to go to the top camera. And then I'm going to draw a sphere. Let's say there is a sphere on a table. In order for me to paint the sphere, I'm going to use maybe a couple of brushes right here. And I'm going to paint it with just one color. In order to minimize fast drying effects, and sometimes it depends on the humidity. Like for instance, in my studio right now, there's air conditioning working and there is a fan above me. I'm in Florida, it's very hot. So it dries pretty fast. So to minimize the fast drying effects, I'm going to use sepia. I'm going to put a couple of mixes. To be exact, it's going to be 3 mixes actually. Very light, medium, and heavy mix of sepia with very little water. In my mind, it signifies halftones, midtones, and cast shadows. You see, I prepared these mixes beforehand. It's just when we paint in watercolor, I'd like to anticipate what's next move is going to be, not just being at that moment task. Now, it's about 10% of pigment versus water in this one, 50-50 in the midtone, and 90% of pigment versus water in the heavy ones. I'm going to start, let's imagine the light comes from this side, and I'm going to, let me zoom in, start painting the hot spots, which I actually leave just a white watercolor paper. My brush is going along the way the sphere is constructed. Then I'm going slightly darken it while the edge is still wet. You see, I'm already utilizing the idea that I'm working with a wet edge. I can go darker at this point, which is now midtone. It's getting darker. And now I'm going into very heavy mix of pigment and watercolor right here. You see, without waiting till it dry, and I'm going to paint cast shadows in this area. To soften it right here a little bit. Look at this. I'm going to darken it, even with just almost like paint from the tube in this area with a cast shadow. And I can even introduce reflected light into this area by putting dark area for the midtone right here. As you can see, we have a perfect representation of the round form, and which was only possible to paint when the edges were still wet. Now, I'm using one color only right now. But if I would use and paint this in color, to prepare colors beforehand would be even more critical. And I'm going to try to show it to you right now. Let me clean the palette first. I have to decide which color it is. Let's assume it is a white sphere on a white table. And we're going to paint it in color. Of course, it's a fantasy colors, depending on the color of the light. I'm going to assume that this is the daytime sort of cool color. That's my sphere. Same sphere, same table in color. First of all, I'm going to find out what the half-tone colors would be. Let's assume it's warm, okay? I'm using yellow ochre right now with the same amount of water, 1 part of pigment, 10 parts of water. Take it or leave it. Then I'm going to go into darker area. I'm mixing my cobalt blue. It doesn't really matter what I'm using right now. What matters is that you can see I'm preparing everything, every mixes beforehand to minimize effect of the fast drying area. Just imagine if I would be a little bit late to paint this, I would get color flowering, I would get hard aging, everything everywhere, and it's not really happening right here. So I'm just going to mix for some lavender kind of colors right here, and that would be a half-tone, mid-tone. And then I'm going to use right here colors for the mid-tones and cast shadows. I'm using ultramarine, the Axazine color, and burnt sienna. So my brush is squirrel mop at this point, okay? So this is good colors already. I see how I can use them all, and they are already prepared. Imagine it's a kitchen table, and I have all ingredients in front of me to do my cooking, and I'm not running to the store every time I need a salt or pepper. It's already readily available. So let's start with the same. Oops, I need to clean my brush. Doesn't matter really. So again, I'm gonna leave hot spot right here unpainted. You see little tiny unpainted area right here. Let's warm it up slightly. You see, we're getting slightly warmer light. And my brush is always going by form, which is very important. That's another topic. And then I'm slowly going into dark half tones, mid tones slash, and then it's going to be even darker mid tone right here. I'm anticipating that watercolor will lighten up when it will dry. Now we're going into mid tone. Like this. I'm going to finish it like this. And now I need very dark color for the cast shadows. So I'm mixing indigo. I'm just adding it into this heavy mix of paints. While it's still wet, I'm going to add my cast shadow right here. Let me zoom in. And I would say in Florida, voila. Seriously? That's what you say in Florida, right? And making it exactly darker right under, while it's still wet. Nobody wants to see this edge between mid-tone and cast shadow, believe me. And then we can also, again, introduce a slight hint of reflected light. I'm almost late here. I think I'm late because it's kind of dry in my studio right now. But I think you got the picture, you see? So the only way it is possible to paint it this way is when everything is ready. Timing in watercolor is everything. And my students complaining that I'm painting too fast and that they're not catching up with me. But folks, let me be frank with you. There are some times when it's just impossible to paint it any slower. Otherwise, I'm going to get a lot of troubles fixing my paintings afterwards. I hope this short video was helpful. Thank you very much. And until next week, bye-bye.